Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we are taking a deep breath and diving into the mind of Dan Harris and his bestseller, 10% Happier. Our mission for you is to really dissect this thing. On one hand, you have the book's main idea that meditation is this, practical tool for skeptics.
Right.
But then, on the other hand, you have this really powerful critique of the whole wellness industry that's sprung up around it. We're pulling from the book, from interviews, all the online chatter.
Yeah, and the origin story is just so compelling. I mean, here's Dan Harris, an ABC News anchor, a total committed cynic.
The last person you'd expect.
Exactly. And the hook, the thing that I think got so many people on board was how low he set the bar. It wasn't about enlightenment. It was just, maybe you'll be 10% happier.
That low bar is genius. It manages expectations right away. But his journey, it starts with something, well, anything but modest. It was a full-blown, very public crisis.
Oh, completely. Live, on air. A panic attack while he was anchoring Good Morning America.
I mean, can you imagine?
It's terrifying. He's reading the news and then suddenly, boom, heart racing, sweating, can't breathe. He just had to stop mid-sentence and toss it back to the other anchors. The whole system just crashed in front of millions.
So let's talk about why. Why did the system crash? Because he lays out this perfect storm of factors. It wasn't just, a bit of stage fright.
No, not at all. His whole system was weakened. He had this baseline anxiety, for one.
Okay.
But then you layer on top of that years spent in war zones as a correspondent. That creates a kind of addiction to adrenaline. So when he came home, he was chasing that high with what he calls stupid shit.
And that included drug use. He was very open about using cocaine.
Right. So you combine the pre-existing anxiety, the post-war trauma and adrenaline addiction, and the drug use. I mean, that panic attack was almost inevitable. The fuse was lit.
Which is what makes his initial reaction to meditation so important for the story he's telling. He just thought it was
silly, new agey nonsense, his words. He felt it was beneath him as a serious journalist.
So what broke through? What got past that built-in journalistic cynicism?
The science. Simple as that. As a reporter, he's trained to look for evidence, and he started finding all this research showing that meditation wasn't some mystical woo-woo thing.
It was a measurable intervention.
Exactly. Studies showing it could literally lower your blood pressure, boost your immune system, and, this is the big one, physically rewire parts of your brain. For a skeptic like him, that kind of hard, clinical, no BS data was the only way in.
He basically used science to hack his own skepticism. And now he calls himself a secular Buddhist. That's a really interesting framing.
It is. He's clearly drawn to the wisdom in the tradition, but he's careful to strip out the more spiritual or, less accessible parts for a mainstream Western audience.
He's making it a product they can use.
He's making it a tool. And his whole pitch is just brilliant. He basically says, look, if this can work for a drug-addled, know-it-all, asshole news anchor, and that's pretty close to his own description, then it can probably work for you.
It's so disarming. It just removes all the excuses.
It does. It makes it feel less like a spiritual quest and more like, mental hygiene, like brushing your teeth.
So if we boil it down,
yeah.
What is mindfulness, according to Harris? He uses this great analogy of being an inner meteorologist.
I love that analogy because a meteorologist doesn't stop the hurricane, right? They just see it coming.
They see it on the radar before it makes landfall.
Exactly. So you learn to see the cloud of irritation or the low pressure system of anxiety building before it turns into a total emotional disaster. That awareness itself is the superpower. It's the alternative to just living reactively all the time.
And that pause, that space the awareness creates, that leads us right into the core concept, like the difference between happiness and pleasure.
This is such a huge one. For us in the West, we tend to think they're the same thing.
Right. More pleasure equals more happiness.
But that's not the Buddhist view. The famous line, life is suffering, is, according to Harris, a bad translation. It's more like life is inherently unsatisfying when you're focused on impermanent hits of pleasure.
So it's the chasing that's the problem.
It's the chasing. And we're all caught in this biological trap called hedonic adaptation.
Ah, yes. The great enemy of lasting happiness.
It really is. It's that mechanism in your brain where no matter how great something is, you get a promotion, you buy your dream car, you just get used to it so fast.
It becomes the new normal.
It becomes the new baseline. And the pleasure juice, as he puts it, just runs out. Your brain stops giving you that reward because its job is to look for the next thing, the next threat, the next need.
It's fascinating, though, that for a secular Buddhist, his solution is pretty traditional. If fleeting pleasures don't work, what does?
Wholesome sources of satisfaction, things like generosity, kindness. He says these things will never get old.
Because they're not about self-gratification. They're about connection.
Right. They recalibrate your whole system instead of just giving you a temporary high that you'll have to chase again tomorrow.
And a lot of that chasing is driven by that voice in our heads. The ego, the destructive chatter he talks about.
Oh, that chatter is relentless, isn't it? The ego is always, always comparing itself to other people.
It's what drives us to succeed, but it also makes us miserable.
Absolutely. It's constantly judging others and even more so judging ourselves.
So the goal of meditation isn't to kill that voice, but to just not get on the train, is how they put it. The train of association.
That's the perfect way to describe the spiral. You have one annoying thought, like, I don't know, I hate that email.
And the train of association is where your mind immediately goes from that to my boss hates me, to I'm going to get fired, to I'm a total failure.
And you're suddenly in an emotional catastrophe based on one tiny little stimulus. Mindfulness is just seeing that train pull into the station and choosing not to get on board.
That ability to choose to respond instead of just blindly reacting. That's what he means by mastery.
And the key ingredient is the pause. That little gap between the stimulus and your reaction. That's where all the good stuff is. Creativity, wisdom. It's why you get your best ideas in the shower.
Because the chattering mind has finally shut up for a second.
The prefrontal cortex gets a chance to catch up with the emotional brain. That pause is everything.
Okay, but here's where we have to pivot. Because as soon as you package something like this and sell it, you invite a ton of criticism, which is often summed up by this term, McMindfulness.
Yes, and it's a really important critique to understand because Harris's success is a perfect example of this tension.
McMindfulness is basically about the commodification of these deep spiritual practices.
Right, and the sources point to two main problems with it. First, there's the cultural stripping.
You mean taking these ancient Eastern philosophies and acting like Western psychologists just invented them last week?
Exactly, divorcing them from their ethical and spiritual roots. And the second critique is a bit more cynical. It's the idea that meditation is just being sold as a personal optimization tool.
To make people good little worker bees.
To make you better at coping with your stressful job so you don't question why the job is so stressful in the first place. It puts all the focus on fixing the individual, not the system causing the stress.
And critics also went after Harris's personal story in the book. They found him a bit self-indulgent.
Yeah, that criticism came up a lot, specifically around how much time he was meditating. He was spending hours a day doing it. And people pointed out, well, his wife is a doctor, they have a young child.
So she's busy doing work, more important than television, as one critic put it.
And it highlights a real issue. This level of self-optimization often requires time and money that most people just don't have. It's a privilege.
That context is key. And you see that same kind of Western self-interest framing in his famous meeting with the Dalai Lama.
That story is amazing. Harris, the ultimate rationalist, just can't wrap his head around altruism, doing good for its own sake.
Right.
And His Holiness has to basically convince him to be altruistic by arguing that it'll make him, Dan Harris, happier. He has to sell this core Buddhist idea using the language of personal gain.
Which is pretty much the entire project of the book in a single anecdote.
It is. But to be fair, the defense of Harris is that his cynicism was his greatest asset. He gave millions of skeptics permission to try this stuff without feeling like they had to buy the whole spiritual package.
By promising just 10%, he made it feel doable, not like some impossible goal.
Exactly. More like a skill you could learn.
Okay, let's make this practical. What are the key takeaways you can actually use? One of the big ones is gratitude. He frames it as a direct antidote to that hedonic adaptation we were talking about.
It's the perfect countermeasure. Harris realized his ambitious brain was always scanning for the next goal, the next problem, and totally ignoring all the amazing things he already had.
So his practice is super simple. Before bed, he just lists things he's grateful for, and they don't have to be new or exciting.
Right. It's the stuff you take for granted. His son, his wife, his job, being healthy. The point is to consciously force your brain to register the existing positives, not just hunt for future threats.
He also talks about metta, or loving-kindness meditation, which he found really, really hard at first.
A lot of people do. He said it felt fake, forced.
Can you just explain what it is quickly?
Sure. You basically visualize people, yourself, loved ones, neutral people, even difficult people, and you send them good wishes. May you be happy, may you be safe.
So why is it so hard, and why does that matter for someone listening to this?
It matters because most of us, like Harris, expect to immediately feel this warm, fuzzy glow. And when we don't, we think we're failing. But the sources stress that the goal isn't the feeling, It's the intention.
Ah,
The practice is just consistently setting the intention to wish others well. That act itself changes your brain over time, whether you feel it in the moment or not. It breaks down that hard wall between me and them.
it's the practice, not the performance. Love that. Okay, the last thing, let's go back to the beginning. The panic attack.
Yeah.
For anyone listening who deals with that kind of intense anxiety, there's some really counterintuitive advice in here from a Tibetan master.
This is from Mingyur Rinpoche, and it's a wild idea. He says that for some people, trying to be mindful of the panic can actually make it worse.
It just amplifies the fear.
Exactly. So he suggested from his own experience with panic that sometimes you have to call up a different, strong emotion, specifically anger.
Wait, what? Anger? When you're trying to be calm.
I know it sounds completely backward, but think about it. Panic makes you freeze or flee. It renders you helpless. Anger, in this context, is a forward-moving, mobilizing energy.
So instead of being paralyzed by fear, you get mad at it.
You get mad, you're still feeling a powerful emotion, so you're not suppressing anything, but you're not scared, you're not frozen. It allows you to move, to act, to prevent that total psychological shutdown. It's emotional jujitsu.
Wow. That is something to think about.
So if we pull it all together, what Dan Harris did was translate this ancient wisdom into a language that the skeptical, rational West could understand. But in that process, you inevitably get this tension between, authentic tradition and commercial self-help.
And that's a tension you see everywhere now, the whole fix yourself versus fix the system debate. So for you, the listener, what really stands out is this distinction between skepticism, which Harris had in spades, and cynicism, which the wellness industry is often accused of promoting.
It's a great distinction. Skepticism is productive. It asks, show me the evidence. Cynicism just dismisses everything and asks, what's the scam? Harris's whole story is about how productive skepticism can actually open you up to new ideas. And so maybe we can leave you with this thought. The pursuit of knowledge, like the pursuit of kindness, never really gets old. And maybe it's that willingness to question your uncertainty that ultimately makes you just that little bit happier.